Great. All right. So let's do some intros. Let's talk about who's on the panel here today. So my name is Julia. At Songtrust, I am the director of copyright. So that means I lead the team that registers all of our clients' works with um, performing rights organizations and mechanical collection societies all around the world, all of our pay source partners. We make sure that the works are registered and collecting so that we can get the royalties to you. And I have been with Songtrust since 2016, so it's been a while, and I've seen a lot of growth, and the catalog has grown so much. We've never done an event like this before, so this is very exciting to see us have this many clients interested to talk about publishing. And outside of work, I'm also a songwriter myself, which is why I'm on the panel today. I hope so I'm a songwriter outside of work. I am mostly a top liner if we're gonna the three categories we had here today. And I write mostly pop music. I've written with some of my friends, Canon, Lux Tides. She just actually she's the featured vocalist on the most recent Afrojack song. Jesse Chambers, probably a lot of people Jameson knows as well. Jameson and I have worked together before. It's nice to see you again.
I know it's been a minute.
It's been a minute. And then in addition to that, I also have an artist project myself. It's called Bad. Our Instagram is Bad the Band. I left the Spotify link as well, which I also write for. And then, we perform around New York and release our own stuff. So I will pass it over to Jameson to intro and then to Noah.
All right, what's up, everybody? Noah, by the way, you have my name, and it's cracking me up when I click your face that you came in as my name too. I don't know how that happened. I don't know if anyone else sees that, but it's funny. My name is Jameson, or Jameson Fox. Jameson's more of my artist name, or just how I introduce myself, but in my writing credits, I go by Jameson Fox. I'm from New Jersey, so New York was kind of my outlet for a while, and then I recently moved to Nashville in July to expand my network and just meet more people. I'm primarily a writer, but I'm also a manager. I guess we're going by top liner too. I know they're similar, but kind of different. So writer, is I think more generalized, and top liner is more specific to, writing only melody and lyrics. Writers work with artists. Top liners mostly, I feel like, work with producers. So they're writing to a track rather than from scratch. So yeah, that's a little bit about me, and I'll pass it along to Noah, oh, you changed your name.
There's only one Jameson Fox in the world. Hi everyone. Thanks so much for having us, Julia. I'm Noah Hyams. I'm the co-founder of Songathon. I don't know if you know Songathon, but our mission is to bring together songwriters and create opportunities for them. I would say we're probably best known for our 24-hour songwriting competition. Jameson actually attended the first two times we hosted that. We have to get you a new shirt. And I'm excited to be here to help everyone succeed in their songwriting careers.
Thank you guys so much for being here. So I think what we're going to do is chat a little just about being a working songwriter, session do's and don'ts, how to network, how to meet people, how to get in the room, and we'll get some of Jameson's insights. Ooh, an animal.
And my cat. What happens when you work?
Maybe we'll get some of the cat's insights. It'll be great. So I'm gonna see if I can get the poll pulled up. But basically, we want to know, how do you typically start writing a song? Do you start with a title? Do you start with a lyric, a melody? Here we go, or a track? We'd love to know what everybody's process is like. And in the meantime, we'll start chatting. So I think the most important part of becoming a working songwriter, a songwriter who has cuts, who has songs out, who is making money, earning any sort of money, you have to get the songs released. So how are you going to do that? There are two really good ways. One is get in the room with an artist. And one is be the artist, another is be the artist yourself. So how do you get in the room with an artist? I think a really great way is to support artists that are local to you. Find people on Instagram, on TikTok, whatever it is, hype them up, share their work, start a relationship that way, go to their shows. And that's a really great way to meet artists and, show them what you do and start a relationship and start doing sessions together. I think especially as a starting out beginner songwriter, doing sessions, as we like to call for pitch, usually doesn't result in a cut. Jameson, you can tell me if you've had any different experience, but I really think most of the time when you write a song without the artist who's planning to release that song in the room, it's very unlikely that your song is going to get pitched. If you have a manager, if you have, people that have connections to artists who may be looking for songs, you might have a better chance. But most of the time, I find that that's a really ineffective way to get songs released, and you end up having a bunch of probably great, but songs just sitting around on a hard drive, not being released.
I completely agree with you. So that's something I had to kind of learn as, I was going through my career, is that when you're in the room with an artist, there's a lot bigger chance for it to get released. The only way for pitch for songs that's sitting in your catalog is to pitch them to producers, because they don't typically write their own stuff. So if you are, a top liner, that's what a top liner would do, is take a song with their co-writer, whoever, and pitch it to producers. And I've had a good amount of success that way, but there's still a ton sitting in my catalog. So, you can then try and get into the sync world with that. But you're absolutely right. Having a direction is super important, especially, as you move forward in your career.
Totally. And I think deciding to be an artist is actually a really interesting thing as well. I know you have some stuff out with yourself as the artist, Jameson. And
I did that for a reason, but yeah, continue and then I'll comment.
Yeah, and I want to hear about it. I think it's something someone told me early on. I had a bunch of songs, no one was going to cut them. They were just sitting around, and someone said, "Why don't you just put them out? Just put them out." And even if your end all be all is not to be an artist, it's a great way to just say, "Hey, this is my work. It's been released. It's been, streamed, and people, want to listen to it." And people can, if they come across that music on their own, whether, playlists or friends sharing it or what have you, that's another way to build your network. So I find the project that I started called Bad is, one, just like a fun outlet for myself, but two, a way to say, "Hey guys, I write songs." I don't know if you know that, and meet other artists that I can then work with. I'd love to know about your artist project, Jameson.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I kind of reached a point where I was like, hey, I have some songs that I'd really love people to hear and no one's releasing them. So I'm just going to put them out. And, I found that that's given me more exposure as a writer as well. It kind of shows how well-rounded you are or can be. And you don't have to do that, but it's just another avenue, to share and showcase, your talent and your music.
Totally. And I know it's really hard. It is a really big undertaking to start a project, have a social media presence, do promotion and marketing and all of that kind of stuff. But I really do think that it could be worth it for you. It depends kind of what your situation is, but definitely something to consider.
Yeah, for me personally, I tend to do a lot of co-releases or collaborations because I don't really like to be in the artist seat. So I'm like the artist as a writer. And I know that's kind of like a new thing. Like I do co-produce on my stuff and I co-write it and whatnot, but I'm not necessarily the voice on the songs. And I think for a lot of people, that's kind of, it goes over their head a little bit. But I think any way you want to share your music, there's no wrong way to do it.
Totally, which leads me to my next point about having a brand. So your brand is being a artist as a songwriter, which is super unique and very, very cool. And I think that's important because people will see your name, they'll look you up on Instagram. I hate that I have to focus so much on Instagram, but it is what it is,
It is what it is.
It's an amazing tool, and I think, we would be to say that it isn't. So something that I did that I found really helpful is I actually have a stage name. So you'll see Julia Pernicone works at Songtrust. Julia Brex is a songwriter. And I did that so that I could keep my kind of two identities separate. I wanted you, when you Google me or look me up on the internet, that you are finding the right version of me. I didn't want those two things getting mixed up. And, I can brand all of my social media, that's my personal stuff and not Songtrust related, based on my songwriting identity. And I don't really have to mix the two. Sometimes I do, like today. But I think that's something that's really important. You want people to find you. I mean, even today, there are so many songwriters, especially for other songwriters, that we know who aren't artists, but they're public figures, you know? All the ones that are coming to mind right now are actually also artists, but in a different way. Like Ryan Tedder, you know, I think people who are fans of One Republic don't know who Ryan Tedder is, but if you're a songwriter, you know who Ryan Tedder is.
Yes, I think you're absolutely
Fans do.
right.
You know what I mean? Like if you hear
Mhm.
One Republic on the radio, you're not like, who's Ryan Tedder? But that's a brand. I mean, Ross Golan, like, totally blanked out his name. He has created an amazing brand as a songwriter advocate. He has the podcast that is also slipping my name.
And the writer is.
And the writer is, where he interviews other songwriters. So having a brand, I think, as a songwriter, whether you're an artist or not, is super important. So let's talk about being in sessions, working with other people. I think we've, you know, definitely made it super clear that collaborating is super important. You're not going to have any songs come out if you're sitting alone in your bedroom writing them and not also being the artist. But collaborating is super important. I'm kind of coming from the perspective of pop sessions. I think Jameson probably is too. So
yeah, that's something, country is definitely something that I'm starting to get into here, but I definitely, it's not something I can comment on yet, but I just know I was at a coffee meeting yesterday and they were saying, you know, if you haven't written country, like it's a whole different world. So like you kind of have to go backwards and earn your place. And it's just the way they write songs is very different than pops. So like in order, yeah, so it's just a whole nother skill set.
Yeah, definitely. I know the hip hop world is also super unique. You know, at the end of the day, songwriting is songwriting, but all of these different genres really do have their own kind of process to how songs are being written and then also how songs are being cut and released. So that's the perspective we're coming from. If anybody has any additional insight, please feel free to share it in the chat. I do want to keep this interactive, and we will do questions and sharing songs later. So if you have things prepared you want to share, get those ready. But I think something that's really important is knowing what your co-writers' strengths are. Even if these are kind of new writers, you know, text beforehand, get to know each other. Are you a producer? Are you more of a melody person, a lyric person? Do you play any instruments? It's honestly not uncommon to have nobody in a room who can play an instrument, especially in a pop session. You know, other than a producer who can, you know, dabble on a MIDI keyboard or what have you. So, you know, kind of knowing what your co-writer's strengths are will show you what your role is. So in my case, I'm typically a top liner in terms of just that I write lyrics and melody. Those are my strengths. And so when I go into a room, you know, I want to know who's going to be able to produce this track because it's not me. You know, who else is really good at lyrics and how can we kind of use our skills together there. And, you know, maybe if someone is super good at melodies, I'll take a step back from there and only focus on lyrics. You just want to know what your role is going to be. Another super important thing is to show up with an idea. There is nothing worse than a session where everyone's just like, I don't know, what do you want to work on? Even if you don't end up using the idea, you want to know that this can go somewhere. We're going to get somewhere today, no matter what we do. And I also wanted to humble brag and share an anecdote that I, you know, keep tons of ideas, lyric ideas, title ideas in a note on my phone, and then voice memos as well for any little melodic things that come up. And I had a really short, just verse idea that I wrote on that I recorded into my voice memos in 2019. Kept it around, brought it up sometimes. Sometimes I went into a session and said, I want to save it, you know, for the right group of people. And that idea is actually coming out next week and is going to be my first major label release. So it just goes to show you how very important it is to
That's amazing, Julia.
come with an idea. Thank you. I'm really excited. And you just never know, you know, when we do these free write exercises, those sorts of things, those can really turn into ideas that maybe you can't bring to life yourself. Maybe you need collaborators to do that with. But it's really, really important to have a direction when you show up in the room.
Yeah, I agree with that. I always have a bunch of notes on my phone, and at the very least, it could inspire someone else. And I also agree with you about having a direction. It definitely wastes time to go into a room not knowing what you're doing. So I think once you reach a certain level of co-writing, people already kind of know that. But for those of you who are new to it or have never done it, like, you'll be ahead of the game if you have some ideas, some melodies. Also, knowing who the artist is in the room, even if it's not going to be for an artist, there really does need to be someone who is in the artist role, just to keep a clear direction and keep the song moving. Otherwise, you can end up getting stuck, or if there are multiple artists in the room, sometimes they end up kind of fighting each other for the position. And there's nothing wrong with that, but just on the day of, it's really good to know who's going to be cutting the vocals, who's going to be the artist in the room. And, you can definitely switch. Well, it's probably better to just decide at the beginning, like, hey, would you like to be the vocalist today? Do you want to kind of take the lead here? And there's nothing wrong with, with that at all. Everyone kind of plays an equal role. And in Nashville, the way, I don't know if we're going to get into talking about royalties and splits, but in Nashville, when you're in the room, everyone gets an equal part no matter what you did. And I really love that because it doesn't make anyone feel less than anybody else.
Totally. And I always say, like, if there was a different group of people in the room at any given time, a song could turn out so, so differently. One person saying one idea can change the direction of an entire song. I love that about country music. I really think all the sessions I do, that's not true. Most of the sessions I do will turn out to be a song, just the splits equally credited across everybody that was in the room.
Yeah. And that was one great thing about Songathon, is like, it was very clear that there's a producer, a writer, and an artist in the room. And I think that's a really great foundation for just a co-writing session in general. So Noah, you did a good job with that. You and Amber.
Thank you so much. I'm curious, maybe both of you can kind of speak on this. What was your first co-writing experience like, and how can someone who's looking at that first experience approach it?
Sure. I was so nervous because I'm the type of person, I like to say I don't like to improvise. I like to be rehearsed. So I don't like to spit out ideas that I'm not sure of, especially in front of other people. So I was very, very nervous about it. But my co-writer was super, super receptive. Another thing I think is super important is to have an open mind and a good attitude. You never want someone to feel like they can't spit out an idea, and even what you think is the stupidest idea can actually turn into something great. So it's really, really important to make everybody feel like they can say whatever they want, any idea that they have. So my co-writer was super, super open to all my ideas and encouraging, like cheering me on, and yeah, let's do that. Or even being a little bit critical, like, I think you could do better than that. And I think that was like the perfect person to kind of pull me out of my shell. So for me, it was a really positive experience.
Mine too, for the most part, but I know people who have kind of started co-writing, and I had a session the other day where an artist in town had never really co-written before. And so when we brought him into the session, this was like a new producer for me too. So it was a very like new situation, but I'm kind of used to that happening. And the direction didn't go the way he wanted. He was like an indie pop artist, and the producer kind of steered at R&B. And I was like, you got to speak up. It's okay. You're the artist in the room. If that's not what you want, speak up about it. Like, we're all here to make a really great product. So it's important to communicate in a co-writing session. I know it's a very vulnerable space, but yeah, some people have great experiences. And if you don't be discouraged. You just haven't met your right co-writers or your right producer match yet. It's very much like speed dating. So
Totally.
right, Noah?
It definitely is not always going to go great. And that's okay. The same way that every song you write isn't going to be great, and probably most of them won't be great. And that goes for all of us. So I also want to talk a little bit about networking, and we'll give Noah a space to talk a little more about Songathon in general. But how do you meet these co-writers? How do you get in these rooms? So actually, speaking of speed dating, one of the things I was going to recommend is getting in touch with your PRO, whatever society you're affiliated with, in whatever territory you are. But typically, these PROs will have a creative department who works with their songwriter members, and holds events and workshops and all of these different things where you can meet other songwriters. BMI in New York specifically has been awesome to me. They do an event called Songwriter Speed Dating. And what they do is they choose again, we're kind of sticking to these categories, but 3 top liners, 3 artists, 3 producers, put them all in a room, everybody meets each other, you play each other a little bit of stuff you're working on, and then they set you up in sessions in different groups later to work together and then come back and show everybody what you worked on. So I think doing anything that your PRO offers, a lot of them do showcases, you know, the more showcases you show up at, the more you become a familiar face, and then maybe you can play on one later. But yeah, I think it's really great to go to any songwriter events that you can find in your city, and your PRO is a great place to start.
Yeah,
I agree.
speaking of, actually, we have speed networking that we do virtually right now with this really cool software that kind of shuffles you so you're not in the same room with the same people over and over. We're doing it on Wednesday, and we created a 25% discount code just for Songtrust people. It's valid for 24 hours. So there's limited spots because we want to make sure it's curated. And if you can't afford it, and then, we know times are challenging right now, you can always contact us through the website at songathon.com. But I'll put the code Songtrust in the chat. So if you're interested, it's been a really good time so far. And we also have guest performers who come on, so you can kind of get kind of a taste of what the community is working on. But yeah, other than that, I think, there's a lot of opportunities to network. What I think is great about Songathon is that it's a shared experience. So Jameson, I don't want to speak for you, but I know of songwriters, who came to Songathon in 2018 in December to have that first Songathon experience. They were put in a group, with 2 other people they never met, and they're still collaborating / best friends / going to each other's shows. What are we, 3 years later now? So again, I think fast. What's so great about networking and having these shared experiences is that, they're shared experiences, which means they can really create a bonding effect. So the more you can put yourself in those situations, again, come to Songathon, but there's also a lot of other great events. I think that's going to help you kind of get into the flow of, being around the people you should be around.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely stay in touch with people from Songathon. It left a really, lasting impression. And I learned about Songtrust, who's been my admin for the last 2.5 years. So they have a lot of great people come, and Scott Harris was there for one of the judges. So it's a really good time to network people who are, at your level, above you, meet new people, get advice, know what you should be doing as a writer, artist, top liner, producer. So yeah, I love Songathon.
And I'll also mention that you just never know who you're going to meet somewhere, and someone who it always feels like you want to be in the room with someone who's more successful than you, more further along in their career, but moving up with people is really, really awesome. So never, don't discount anybody. You don't know who you're working with, and what their next cut is going to be. And obviously you don't want to just work with people for what they can do for you. But what I'm just trying to say is that we're all kind of in this together. Songwriters are here we're supporting each other. And really nobody can do it alone. So meet as many people as you can. You never know who you're in the room with.
Yeah, and to speak on networking, I spend a ridiculous amount still just because it's ingrained in me. But the first place I ever really began to network and just create a network was Instagram. I still slide into people's DMs all the time. I've kind of changed the way I do it from what I was doing, or sometimes now that people see that we have mutuals, they're more likely to respond. But yeah, don't be afraid, there's going to be a ton of no's, but you just never know. If you don't take that chance, you're never going to know if someone's going to write you back. Just be polite, concise, don't ask. One of the most important things I learned is don't ask anyone for anything until you've created a relationship, because that is going to turn people off. But just to say hello, say you like their music, maybe see if they'll listen to one of your songs and give you feedback, or, hey, we like some of the same artists, or we know some of the same people. Just create relationships with people is really, really important. And I still do that on Instagram every day, although I feel like I need to take a social media breather, but that's really how I've created a lot of my network and met a lot of my really good collaborators and friends now.
Yeah, that's super good advice. I do want to address some of the questions we have here, because this is moving very, very quickly. So I think if I Okay, great. We're answering the question live. When will the Songathon songwriting prompts deck be available again, Noah?
That's a great question. Very soon.